Point and Click Productions, in association with Portland Mindfulness Therapy, and coming to you from Wigwam Studios, otherwise known as my garage, I present David Bowie. Let's talk about him because we can. I woke up this morning from a horrible nightmare, and I won't describe that, but I went downstairs and I started surfing around on YouTube, and I was looking for new music, but I wasn't finding a lot that I liked. So I went back to David Bowie, and I watched most of a concert from about the year 2002, and was reminded of why Bowie is still so relevant on so many levels. Now, let's start with the obvious fact that this man is dead. I hate to report that. Actually, that news is more than 5 years old, unfortunately. We had 5 years, as David Bowie once sang. We have 5 years. Maybe 5 years is all we have. But in any case, we've survived 5 years without David Bowie. For me, that's been difficult. For others, perhaps also. I want to also use this as an opportunity to introduce this series that I quietly named Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Rolls. I believe what I named this set of videos. And this is pretty far off topic. Let me first say nothing's off topic. Okay? Mindfulness, to me, is breathing. And breathing is life. Mindfulness is life. Breathing is mindfulness. It's all one piece. If not, you're not doing it right. If it doesn't completely transform your life, you ain't doing it right. But we'll leave that, as I so often tell you, for another video. What I'd like to talk about today is David Bowie and rock and roll, and a little bit, very, very little bit of history, and mostly just a bunch of my opinions, which is what we're here for, is to share opinions. So I do believe that David Bowie was one of the single most influential people on world culture in the history of mankind, with a bias towards the past 50 years. So why do I say that? First of all, he was one of the early, let's say, gender benders. He wasn't so keen on the idea of two traditional genders, man and woman, male and female. I can talk, but it's really early in the morning, I have to tell you, for me at least. Not a time when I'm usually talking. It's currently 6:30 a.m. I woke up about an hour ago. Male and female, masculine and feminine. These were things that Bowie, a young Bowie, set out, whether he intended to or not, and I think he intended to because he was a rather intentional person. He sent out to smash these things. Sent out. Wow. He set out to smash these things in some ways, and in some ways he succeeded. At least he put a crack in the edifice. He and many, many other people of many different configurations, shall we say, as I don't want to get into terminology today. I really, really, really don't. So Bowie came forth as a kind of girly boy, a kind of mashup of gender imagery, and he was so sophisticated at such a young age. I was just listening to the song Quicksand, the demo version that's available on YouTube at least, and I'm sure it's available elsewhere. This song, if you're not familiar with it, is a beautiful, just exquisite poem and a beautiful chord progression, and of course Bowie's beyond beautiful voice, and at a very young age it was a rather feminine voice, especially in the demo version. Feminine, okay? Gentle, soft, and yet piercing to the heart. This song talks about his attraction, this is not going to sound nice, to, among other things, Nazism. Bowie, what are you doing? But he was acknowledging his darkest side. He was looking at something horrible, really, really horrible, that he was pulled towards, and that he was acknowledging that he was pulled toward it, And he called the song Quicksand. That as soon as we start believing our thoughts, see the connection? See what I did there? As soon as we start believing our thoughts, there's an inevitable slide towards being an unmitigated, terrible person. Or perhaps a Nazi. And the refrain of the song is, don't believe in yourself. Don't deceive with belief. Knowledge comes with death's release. Don't believe in yourself. Don't deceive with belief. Knowledge comes with death's release. He was a mystic. He was interested in things. He mentions in the song Quicksand, the Golden Dawn, which is, he also explicitly mentions Aleister Crowley, mentioning him as Crowley or Crowley. The Golden Dawn, I believe, was founded by Crowley. Those of you mystics and esoteric people out there can correct me about my facts. I'm pretty vague on facts these days. I am 51 and starting to lose it. But he was interested in the occult seemingly his whole life. I have to say I have been as well, though that's not my main thing. And in this complex song, he's acknowledging so many things, that transcendence and the wish for transcendence, the wish for becoming better is quicksand. I heard a guy talk. He was supposedly participating in a discussion on a certain topic that has something to do with our theme, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And I'm not going to get more specific than that. It was pretty recent. And this guy was really, really stoned on his own ideas. And he was just preaching it. And he was not interested in anything any of us were saying. He had sunk all the way down in the quicksand of his thoughts, and he had not got the power anymore. That's another part of the song. I'm sinking in the quicksand of my thoughts, and I ain't got the power anymore. And Bowie managed to get that to sound like it rhymed. Well, why did I bring up this pompous fellow? Well, I think he had sunk down into this. He was looking for transcendence, but wow, I don't think he found very much that. Well, personally, I wouldn't want to have what he had. I wouldn't want to be, for lack of a better metaphor, smoking whatever he's smoking. He's smoking his ego, and Bowie recognized this and talks about in that song and elsewhere the need and the urge towards religion. Another part of that song, Quicksand, he says, I'm going to possibly mess this part up. I'm not a prophet or a Stone Age man, just a mortal with potential of a Superman. Ooh, Superman. Back to Nietzsche. Man and Superman might be Mensch und Übermensch. And then the Nazis, of course, ran with that. And then the next line is, I am tethered to the logic of Homo sapien. Can't take my eyes from the great salvation of bullshit faith. Oh, just nails it. I'm tethered to the logic of Homo sapien. Can't take my eyes from the great salvation of bullshit faith. That was a very wise young man. I don't imagine Bowie was older than 25 at the time. It was about 1972. If he was, it wasn't much, and he might have been younger than that. I'd have to look up his dates. Well, what am I even rambling about here? I guess really I am, after having made the video on Billie Eilish, which certainly touches on music, if not rock and roll per se, I always think of it all as rock and roll. All pop, all disco, all dance music, all of it's rock and roll as far as I'm concerned at this point. Maybe I'm wrong in saying that, but I'm gonna lump it all together. If I like it, it's rock and roll. And if it's not rock and roll, then it's probably jazz. So let's not quibble. So I kicked it off without realizing I was kicking something off with a video about Billie Eilish, whom I admire deeply, and is one of the only people I've discovered who's brand new, relatively speaking, in my scale of things. Certain young people will tell me that, that's from 3 years ago. That's not really new. Well, it's pretty bloody new to me when I'm sitting here talking about people singing in 1971 and 1972 when I was barely alive. Well, I guess I was very much alive, but I was 1 or 2 years old. That rock and roll, as one of my favorites, Robin Hitchcock, that a lot of people haven't heard of, rock and roll is the great civilizing force, as he put it, of the 20th century. I think it continues to be one of the great civilizing forces of the 21st century. Music in general, and the music of the people, the music that we all share, that is the most popular music, is music with a driving beat. And I don't care if it's, Melanie Martinez singing, kind of carrying on the tradition of maybe people more in the dance music domain, and maybe picking up on Madonna. And I'm going to get in trouble here because this is not my area, really not my area of music, but also a lot of people who are not white. Having mentioned Madonna, I should mention 6 other people that actually are probably a lot better than Madonna and aren't white. And Melanie Martinez is picking up on them too, but my mind's not moving fast enough. I don't care whether it's teen pop stuff, to me, disco-y, dancey stuff. The word disco is completely lost forever in the annals of time. I don't care whether it's speed metal. It's all rock and roll. It's all rock and roll to me. Or as Billy Joel once said, it's still rock and roll to me. I have been listening to rock and roll music now since I was 5 years old, minimum. Minimum? No, at the latest 5 years old was when I consciously, intentionally fell in love with rock and roll. I don't know if I intentionally fell in love, but I was quite aware of what I was consuming to the extent that a 5-year-old can be. By 6, I was buying my own records. Let's put it that way. Okay? My first record was Kiss, Rock and Roll Over. And I'll never forget the spectacular, to me, cartoon cover of Rock and Roll Over. It's sort of a mandala of the 4 painted faces. Bowie was a face painter, not so kabuki theater like Gene Simmons and Kiss, but in his own way, of course, with his various characters like Ziggy Stardust, the now iconic lightning bolt across his face from the Aladdin Sane album, and on and on. I run the risk of rambling incoherently, and that's always true. And in this video, no more so, and actually no less so, and probably a good deal more so. So let's see if I can sort of pull this together. Back to my first point, mindfulness is everything to me. It's not an isolated practice. Oh, I'm going to sit down and meditate for 20 minutes. Good, great. Mazel tov, as we say in the old country. Congratulations, you sat for 20 minutes. That's wonderful. Now, are you going to maintain some awareness throughout the rest of your day? Because if you're not, you're taking a bite of a 10-course meal and then you're walking out. Mindfulness is the full meal of life. It is tasting your life. Here I am preaching about mindfulness. I was supposed to be talking about rock and roll and David Bowie. I guess I did a bit of that. So David Bowie, to me, is part of mindfulness. Now, it just so happens that David Bowie was interested in Buddhism, and I could talk more about that, and probably will at some point. There is a song called fill your heart. He says, fill your heart with love today. Don't play the game of time. Things that happened in the past only happened in your mind, only in your mind. So forget your mind and you'll be free. Now that from Rabbi David Bowie, or I should say Roshi David Bowie, Zen Master David Bowie, or at least a student of paths of awareness. I think I'll call it a day or a morning. I think I've said enough loosely associated things. And this is your morning hash. Not that kind of hash, but maybe something of a chopped up bunch of potatoes and what have you, served up lukewarm here at Wigwam Studios of Joe Rhinewine, this guy associated with Portland Mindfulness and Point and Click Productions. And I'm going to get out while the getting is good. Bye.